Hello, Hockey World. Today is Wednesday, June 14th, 2017. Go, Peter.
I'm Peter Tessier, covering the Winnipeg Jets.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
Everything goes to pot when Eklund's not here. And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Hey, folks.
I love how Peter's trying to look healthy. Like, I've just been to Popeyes. I'm drinking Hawaiian Punch, and he's drinking something green. Come on, Peter.
Uh-oh. Russ, we lost volume there.
You don't even want to know.
What is in that?
You just don't want to know.
I do want to know, and the viewers want to know.
I've got it. You know what it is? Actually, it's cold pressed juice that you can buy at Costco.
Okay.
And it's fabulous. It's actually, and it's got a little bit of ginger in it. It's like a nice healthy thing. I just came back from the gym about an hour ago. I'm soft boiling eggs in a special thing called a sous vide. And
no, we know sous vide.
Okay.
And I got the timer on 45 minutes, and boom, we're gonna have eggs.
And then you're gonna ruin it tonight with like 2 beers.
See, no.
That's Friday night.
I'm the guy who goes to the gym and works out for an hour and a half, and then when I come back, I munch on potato chips.
Yeah.
It's typical.
Yeah, I really do. My workout is so I can eat something good, not so that I can go home and further deprive myself.
All right. First of all, congratulations go out to the Grand Rapids Griffins who win the Calder Cup over the Syracuse Crunch. And believe me, Russ, after watching the Syracuse Crunch play the Marlies, I'm surprised anybody could beat them. But Grand Rapids has been a good team for a number of years. This is the second Calder Cup they've won, I think, in 4 seasons.
Yeah, I saw Tyler Bertuzzi got a big goal. I was happy for him. Good stuff.
Yeah, Svechnikov, who's a Detroit prospect,
should be on the team next year, but you never know. It could still take another year for him.
Yeah, so I just wanted to tip my hat to them. Okay, news just broke literally as I was pressing the start broadcast button here. The New York Rangers, and the buyout window has started in the NHL, which means that there will be some surprising maneuvers. And this wasn't exactly surprising, but it is significant. The New York Rangers have bought or will buy out the last 3 years of Dan Girardi's contract. And Russ, this is a big chunk. To me, this signifies, you're going to see Kevin Shattenkirk in a Rangers uniform.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, there's a few things that have been going on here that sort of lets us in on that. And I'm not even going to give my opinion on that, but here's what we have. So we have the savings from Girardi. We're hearing now that Kevin Klein might retire, and I hear that that's pretty good chance he's going to. So there's a savings from that salary. They just signed Matt Pumple, and he's clearly going to be the guy that they're going to persuade Las Vegas to take, I think, so they can keep Antti Raanta. So you look at all those things, and now all of a sudden, lo and behold, you can fit in Kevin Shattenkirk if he gives them a fair price. He's got to come in probably about 6.5, though. He can't. I don't think he can come in at 7.5, which is probably what he was hoping to get on a long-term deal.
Okay, now Girardi had 3 years left. The buyout will be spread over 6 years. $2.61 million for the first year, $3.61 million for the next 2 years after that, and then $1.1 million for 3 more years. So a cap hit, a significant cap hit for 6 years to buy out the last 3 years of Girardi's contract. Peter, I mean, I'm not exactly surprised because if you watch Girardi over the last few years, he's been slowing down. It's a big cap hit. If they would have bought out Mark Stahl, it would have been spread over 8 years. So I think this is economic more than anything. But it's also a sign that the slower defensive-minded defenseman is sort of anathema in the NHL now.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's becoming a realization across the board. And, you have to wonder if this puts a bit of a dent in maybe what some other teams are doing. Because if you were looking to acquire a defenseman, maybe Dan Girardi as a third-pairing guy at $2 million is a little more appetizing than trying to swing a deal right now in before the draft or at the draft or both drafts. And, it's interesting. And at a third-pairing guy, he's a useful, serviceable defenseman.
Yeah,
he's just not a guy you want to. He's not a guy you want to spend $5.5 million for, and then feel that the salary justifies where he plays because you're paying him that much. And coaches and GMs get in that habit too.
Yes, and that's a fair point. What's happened with Girardi, and through no fault of his own, he had when John Tortorella was there, he took on the job of lead shot blocker, and ever since then, through last season, has been leading that charge for blocking shots. It takes a toll on a body, and Dan Girardi works out harder than probably anybody I've ever seen. And how long can a human hold up to that? That's really the key. I mean, he's still got a little offense in his game where he'll get you some points. His skating is not bad. It's not great. It's not bad. It's just good enough. Last year when he came back and said, hey, I'm healthy now, he did look good for a little while. He did. And then, after blocking a bunch more shots, it starts, weighing on him again. So if he can get in a third pairing role where he's not having to block as many shots, he'll still be effective for probably 3 or 4 more years in the league.
Yeah.
Just not in the role the Rangers needed him in.
Well, okay, here's the question, because Girardi's a right-hand shot. He's 33 years old. As you said, there's a lot of wear and tear, a lot of mileage on those tires. But he opens himself to the possibility with the buyout that he doesn't have to take big money. I mean, he probably, he can get a 1-year deal, maybe a 2-year deal from teams out there. But he opens himself up to the possibility he's never won a Stanley Cup. He could go to a Pittsburgh or a Chicago or an up-and-coming team like an Edmonton or Toronto and be that veteran presence. So, you think that the buyout's there and it's the end for Dan Girardi. No, it's probably just the beginning in the sense that he's going to get another opportunity because of his resume, Russ. Yeah,
there's no doubt. And here's a number for his block shots. And this is going back to – let's go back. I think it's looking at around 2009 if my eyes are adjusting right. So here are the numbers. 180, 236, 185, 125, 174, 184, 195, 166. I don't know. And Aaron Ward used to be a shot blocking machine, if you remember. And yes. I don't think he blocked that many shots. I don't think Jay McClement blocked that many. I don't know if there's a guy who's been asked to block as many shots as this guy.
Jay McKee. Yeah, Jay McKee. Sorry.
Shots. If that's the role you're gonna play, you need to get Ludwig's old shin pads. I mean,
but it's more than that now. It's like Ludwig's old shin pads with splinter with the shots guys put off now with composite sticks. That's the problem.
But you do agree with the premise, Russ, that he's going to get a job, he's going to get an offer.
Oh,
yeah. And I think the fact that he's a right-hand shot, I mean,
it does help.
Right now, I don't think that they really need defensive help. But if they lose a Jack Johnson or somebody like that in the expansion draft, I wouldn't be surprised if Columbus and his old coach John Tortorella say, "Hey, come on for a year."
Columbus could do it. I could see Dallas. I could see a bunch of teams.
Yeah, I can. And he's from Southern Ontario, so whenever that's the case, I could see the possibility of it being Toronto. And
Toronto's a possibility too. There's no question.
Now there are other potential buyout situations that are going to happen over the next. Now remember, the buyout window is from today until it starts tomorrow actually, but the Rangers announced it, so it will be in place tomorrow when the window opens. But it lasts until after the draft and just before the beginning of free agency, June 30th. So over the next 15 days, you're going to hear a significant amount. Probably, I'd say, I think it would break double figures that team players are going to get bought out. There's already rumor about Matt Green, the defenseman from the LA Kings, getting bought out. Yeah. Now, Peter, in Winnipeg, with the expansion draft, there's a situation right now. Tobias Enstrom has a year left on his contract. Bufflin's on his new deal. Trouba and Tyler Myers. With the number of forwards they have, they're not going to go 7-3-1. They're not going to go 8 skaters. They're going to go 7-3-1. No. So right now, that means that one of those defensemen is going to get exposed. And doesn't Enstrom have a no-move clause, or am I wrong?
Yes, Enstrom and Buff have to be protected. They have the thing. So here's what's shaping up in Winnipeg, which is kind of funny. And Lord knows there's been a lot of talk, and I think people are missing.
And you people in Winnipeg, you've got nothing else to do but talk, it seems.
Well, exactly. I mean, so here's the talk. what made everyone jump up and go, whoa, was the Jets agreeing to terms of Marco Dano yesterday. So 1 year, $850,000 deal. Here's what I think, and I put this up on my last blog. I think the whole idea is that Chevy and McPhee have an agreement that you will take Dano.
Right.
Now,
I think
whether Dano should be exposed is that's a different conversation. That's another argument. But the idea is that we're going to leave Myers unprotected.
Right.
You're not going to touch him. You're going to get Marco Dano. And now what people are saying here is, well, why did they sign him? There's no reason to sign him. And what people don't understand is that the Golden Knights have to take a minimum of 20 players under contract.
Correct.
Yeah. They can take players without contracts, RFAs, which Dano was, but maybe they already know who they want. And this is doing McPhee a favor. Get him under contract. I don't have to worry about a contract with him. Get him signed. I'll take him. And then maybe a draft pick goes over later. We don't take Myers.
Yeah, it'll be something like that.
So what else happened was the Jets said, came out, they were asked, they wouldn't comment on asking Enstrom if he'd waive his NMC. Enstrom's camp came out and said, if anyone wants to know, the Jets should be the ones who reveal it.
Which means we're not telling, they're not telling.
They're not telling, it's done. So that all of a sudden, boom, guess what? Dano signed the next day.
Well, here's the thing. All right, so yeah, all you have to do, if for anybody watching this show, just follow the list of guys getting signed. Buffalo signs Olmark. Olmark's going to go to Vegas. The Rangers signed Pumple. Pumple's going to go to Vegas. Same thing with Dano.
I'm not so sure about Olmark, Ross.
I think so.
Yes, they signed Olmark to a 2-year deal, a one-way contract, $750,000 per year. I think there's a possibility because all of a sudden it got mentioned again yesterday regarding Marc-Andre Fleury and Buffalo. We know that the biggest cheerleader for Robin Lehner was Tim Murray, and Tim Murray is no longer here. So it's very, very possible that this organization likes Linus Ullmark enough to protect him and expose Robin Lehner, even though they gave up.
That's going to happen. I don't.
Yeah. You know, this is, I think, one of the things that when we look at just, it doesn't matter what team you're talking about with the Golden Knights. McPhee and his team have probably looked back at all the recent expansions and stuff. And then you can go and look at Atlanta moving to Winnipeg and how mismanaged their asset management was in the prospect pool, and said, you know what? This is our one opportunity to get a boatload of draft picks. And they can get so many. We can get the right kind of players we want too, but we can get a boatload of draft picks. And that's what they really need. They've got to fill up. They've got nothing. They've got absolutely nothing in the pipe.
They're going to get draft picks, but going from like the 4th round on, they're going to draft a lot of overagers because draft picks don't do them any good. None of those guys can play in the AHL. They still have to have 14 guys to play in the AHL.
Yeah.
Not everybody that they pick up from these teams is going to the AHL because they have to have an NHL roster. So I think they're going to fill the AHL roster with a lot of overage players. That's what I think.
Or they're going to be very heavy into the college free agent market.
Right.
Yeah, and that makes sense. But you got to have the picks to do that, right? And Russ, you're right. After the 4th round, that's what they need. I mean, and if I'll use the Jets, if it's Dano in a 5th to keep them from taking Myers, Chevy's going to do that every day.
Sure,
because it solves his own problem, right?
Yeah, but this is the thing, Peter. Why would the price from McPhee be so cheap? Dano is a borderline NHL, or at least with the Jets he is, because they have so many young forwards. I mean, we know that he was a very good prospect with Columbus. He got moved to Chicago. Now he got moved to Winnipeg. This would be his 4th NHL team, and maybe he just hasn't gotten the opportunity. But if you're going to protect one of your better defensemen, either Myers or you're not going to expose Trouba, so it's going to be Myers.
Yeah.
Why would the price be a mid-round pick and Marco Dano when you could ask for Josh Morrissey, or you could ask for something higher level?
He hasn't been turned down. That's why.
Yeah.
Well, then you just take Myers. Then I'm just saying. You know what I'm saying? It's not.
George has to be able to
double cross the guy.
Right.
You can't, and maybe it's the third round. I don't know.
Well, it's not double crossing him if you say I know McPhee's got to do business with these guys and he's done business with them before, but it's not double crossing him to say, okay, I don't value Marco Dano that much. If you expose Tyler Myers, that's the guy I'm going to take. Make it worth my while not to take him, and it's got to be more than Marco Dano.
No, you see, here's the thing. McPhee is not going to be as cutthroat as you are, Mike, in your rotisserie baseball league. It's not going to work that way.
Okay. All right. And I'll use less colorful language that I did before I hit start. But a team that is crying out for massive buyouts in my eyes is the Buffalo Sabres. Now they will wait until after the expansion draft, and maybe Russ is right. Maybe Olmark is the guy that gets claimed by Vegas. But Tyler Ennis, Matt Molson, there are a couple other Zach Bogosian. Zach Bogosian's contract is so onerous it can't be bought out. I think it would be another 6 years. It would be like Girardi, 6 more years of cap hit. But there are 3 or 4 guys on the Sabres roster that are just begging to be bought out because they're not worth it. But I don't know whether the Sabres organization is going to do that, and they're stuck with these contracts for 2 or 3 years.
They bought out one player that I know of, Nate Gerby. That's it.
Yeah, and that was one of the stupidest buyouts because he was still an effective player and he was cheap.
He was cheap. It was like I think $1 million a year.
And Russ, didn't they use one of the compliance buyouts on him? Like I mean, I think what they bought out Cody Hodgson too, and that was a bad
Hodgson
contract.
Was the other one. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that there are going to be. I mean, we still have not heard any detail regarding the Anaheim situation, and I think that's sort of a domino that is going to affect a number of teams because right now there hasn't been any more news regarding Kevin Bieksa waiving or not waiving the no-move clause. From every report out there, Anaheim did not ask him to waive the no-move clause. So that means that they have to protect him and 2 other defensemen, definitely Lindholm, and then the third one is likely Fowler. But I think it was Bob McKenzie yesterday reported that there is some sort of deal in place, like you're mentioning, Peter, with Winnipeg. There's a deal in place with Anaheim and Vegas to protect the defensemen that are exposed. Now, again, if I'm Vegas and I have the chance of getting Vatanen or Josh Manson, I'm asking for Sam Steele. I'm asking for a really good young prospect who can make my team in a couple years, and not just some guy who might be good. That's what I think. If Vegas has an opportunity here to get some recompense that is worthwhile, but Mike,
you're using words now our audience doesn't understand.
No, stop it. But I'm just saying, it's like, I mean, if you're Vegas in this situation, don't you want the best return that you can get?
You do and you don't. Again, if you hold somebody, let's say Peter's an owner, and he feels like you have held his feet to the fire, good luck calling Peter when all of a sudden you're at the trading deadline in 2 years, and now you really got to do something because your fan base is getting itchy and you've got to like compete a little bit. And Peter's going to be like, yeah, I really can't help you, Mike. I mean, you got everything I could give you back then. I'm not dealing with you, and then click, and that's it.
Well,
I mean, you're right, and that's how this league works. It's still a connected, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours kind of thing. And I mean, all you have to look at
that goes first.
There's one guy who came into the league in 2008 who's no longer here. And he hasn't been hired since, and he did things differently, and he talked about how he did things differently, and he's in the witness protection program right now, and that's Mike Gillis.
I was going to say,
and and that's how you pay the price.
And Peter, when I wrote an article, I mean, okay, there was an article in The Athletic a couple weeks ago regarding offer sheets, and we all know that offer sheets and the lack thereof is a product of that old boys network, that they're not going to stab each other in the back because all it does is inflate prices all over the place. Well, this article indicated, well, the Maple Leafs should go out and sign Colton Parayko to like a 1-year, $12 million contract, and have St. Louis not match it, which they probably still would they would match it anyway, but have St. Louis not match it, so you would get yourself one of those top 4 defensemen that you're looking for. And I'm like, who is the only general manager since the lockout that has? I mean, Gillis did it with David Backes. He and basically the St. Louis Blues, after they matched the contract with David Backes, they responded by offer sheeting Steve Bernier just to drive the price up.
Oh, and Holmgren did it with Shea Weber, and
yeah, but there was no retaliation by Nashville.
No, there was no retaliation. The retaliation was just coming up with the money.
Yeah, well, true, but I mean, they could have very well been stuck with Steve Bernier if that was the X coming on any second here.
Okay.
But
I know what you're saying.
Total non sequitur. Sorry,
go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say the problem with offer sheets is not that they don't work; it's that the idea of the compensation is so messed up. Make the compensation less, and you'll see people using it a lot more and squeezing things like that.
I hate them.
I like the idea of offer sheets. I think this league needs to get a little more cutthroat from it.
Here's a good story.
A bunch of guys going fishing in Florida 2 times a year when they're not in meetings.
Before Eck comes on, I forgot to mention the Griffins celebrated their big win by spending $400 at McDonald's. That is so nice. AHL, I can't tell you.
Yeah. All right. This is just Bob McKenzie is reporting, and we have to give Russ credit here because Russ talked about this a couple weeks ago. Bob McKenzie is reporting that Derek Stepan's name has been fairly prominent in trade chatter. Stepan's contract has 4 more years at an AAV of $6 million per. Now, Russ, if they move Stepan on top of buying out Girardi, then obviously there's something else afoot.
Yeah, that's Ilya Kovalchuk, I'm afraid. Then you're talking Kovalchuk. Don't shake your head because this is the Rangers. You can't go with logic here. I'm telling you, just by knowing how this team sort of operates, if they move out Stepan, it wouldn't shock me if they give Kovalchuk a better offer.
Then what's their answer up the middle? Are they trading Stepan for Alex Galchenyuk, and Galchenyuk is their center? I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like
possible. Yeah, we brought that up a couple weeks ago that would be a good trade and acceptable for Montreal. Here's a picture, by the way, from Svechnikov's Instagram. That's pretty cool.
Is he holding a Big Mac, or is that a
No, he's got a Miller Lite, but I don't know where he's doing it from. It looks like it's the locker room.
Yeah. So, but yeah, well, I mean, like I said, there's going to be a number of maneuvers. I mean, the LA Kings are very interesting in the sense that, I mean, Green, the buyout of Green doesn't open up a ton of cap space. It opens up, let's see, he's 1 more year left at $2.5 million, but after signing Toffoli to a 3-year extension, they have to open up cap space. The situation with them is Dustin Brown, Marian Gaborik, boat anchors, albatrosses around the neck of their cap, and how they're going to. I think that. I mean, we all know that the Kings are sort of like doing a reset, like not a rebuild, but sort of like a reset while like on the fly. One of the things that they have to do to be able to do that is to either get rid of Brown's contract by sending him to Vegas, or either buying out or burying Gaborik's contract. If they don't, I don't know where they get the operating room to improve themselves.
Moving Green out for 1 year. I don't understand that. He's a UFA after the season.
Apparently, he's just so banged up that's the reason.
Well, then get him banged out more. Put him on LTIR and get the cap space. He's
not officially banged up, but he's one of those guys that just can't do it anymore. That's what I took from reading that article.
I mean, you basically defer the cap hit. He's making 2.5. The cap hit's 2.5. The money paid out is 2.5 this year.
Here's the real. You want to know what's really happening in LA? This is a transition year. They're never going to announce it. They're not going to tell their fans that. But this is a year where they're not expecting much. This is a year where they are going to sort of reset, redo in the draft, maybe make a trade or two, and sort of get the cap where they want to have it be. But I don't think they have high expectations to make it in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, and maybe what they're going to do is, because I believe Gaborik has 4 years left. Yeah, 4 years at 4.875. Yeah, which is obscene. I mean, if they're able to trade Brown to Vegas and get Vegas to take on that contract, and believe me, that's easier said than done, because that contract is long and expensive. If they can do that, then they may want to just carry Gaborik's contract on their cap for another year and then buy him out next year. And instead of 8 years, it's going to be 6 years. I mean, they have to extricate.
You got to give Gaborik's agent tremendous credit here, because that contract pretty much carries him to what could be the next lockout. And that's, you got to admit, that's brilliant.
Not quite as nice as Clarkson's.
Yeah, and touching on the Dion Phaneuf situation, because it sounds to me, as the reports that have come out, it sounds to me like Ottawa expected him to waive the no movement clause.
Well, they're putting public pressure on him now. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, and I mean, well, here's the first thing.
Change his mind, Mike. He has till Friday.
Well, what may change his mind, Russ, is the fact that they could trade him. I mean, I don't know if anybody's going to take Phaneuf at $7 million for 4 more years, but they might take him at $5 million for the next 4 years. And he's got
that's why I think it's playing out in public now.
Right. That's why that's how Toronto got around the no movement clause. He had a modified no trade that allowed 12 teams, him to be traded to 12 teams, and Ottawa was one of the 12. He probably thought that he was never going to get traded to their division rival, but I think that was just how much Toronto wanted to get rid of him and his salary. But now, I mean, I don't think, Peter, that the Sens are going to risk losing Mark Mathot, who I'm not saying he makes Erik Karlsson possible. That's overstating it, but he is the perfect complement to Karlsson's offensive instincts, and you can't lose that guy. Even if he has only a year left in his contract, you can't lose that guy when he's one of the more important guys to your best player.
You know, and it's funny that you go into Mathot after talking about Phaneuf, because there's a lesson to be learned from Phaneuf's history, and that was after his start with Calgary, and when the Flames decided not to keep Adrian Aucoin, and that's when things started to slide for Phaneuf. He understood how Phaneuf played. Like, there's some guys, maybe you don't like what they do all the time, like there's things, but they get what makes your star tick, and they know how to react with it. And if you're getting more from the other player, you can tolerate that guy. And
Peter,
in this case, you know,
I don't know how many times our mutual buddy Sean Vetter told me that Dion Phaneuf's career in Calgary went down the crapper when they got rid of Roman Hamrlik. When Roman Hamrlik was
that in Hamrlik too.
Yeah, when Roman Hamrlik was his defensive pairing in Calgary, he was able to jump into the offense.
That was his rookie season too.
Yeah. But then as soon as they got rid of Hamrlik and he was on his own, or he was playing with another defensive partner, it didn't work, and he took major steps back. And in Toronto, once they recognized it, they gave him the big money. He got traded to Toronto, and in Toronto, the thing that they did that was not good was they played him as the number one, but they didn't have a number two, so they kept putting guys like Mike Koska,
right,
and Corbinian Holzer, and with him. They finally settled on Carl Gunnarsson, who's a good 4-5 guy, but they made that guy be part of the top pairing. So all the weight was on Phaneuf, and all the money was being paid to Phaneuf, and the other guy was not making any kind of money, and the pairing suffered for that reason. Yeah. So now it's like he's in a good situation, and this is where I blame him a little bit. He's in a good situation in Ottawa. He's paired with Cody Ceci. I don't think that if he's exposed in expansion that Vegas is going to claim him with $28 million owed to him over the next 4 years. So I think this might be a little bit of pride or whatever. All I know is he's got the screws. He's putting the screws to the Senators because they don't want to lose CC and they don't want to lose Mathot.
Yeah. And, the other thing with this, too, is how people ask is not necessarily, hey, we want you to waive your no trade clause. It can also be, would you be interested in being exposed and going to Vegas? We just need to know. Like, that's a different thing. If you said, you know what, I'd love an opportunity to go what these guys are doing, live in Las Vegas and have fun. Well, then let's figure it out. The ask isn't we want, it's would you? And it's not always an offensive thing. And that's what I think people are sort of looking at is Ottawa or Team X is asking player Y to say, we want you to waive. No. Do you want to? Do you want this opportunity? Because we can make it happen if you want it.
Well, the more and more I learn about the situation, the more and more I have respect for Marc-Andre Fleury and the way he's handled this situation in Pittsburgh, because he waived his no-move clause in February. It wasn't just like the last week or two. He waived it in February, and I'm sure he has some control over where he goes because he has a modified no trade clause.
Yeah, he's going to give that list right to McPhee. I mean, that's obvious.
Right, and well, it may have already been shared with him, Russ, because honestly, I don't think he's going to Vegas. Yes,
look, he could play there. He could look. If I'm McPhee, if I don't hear a good enough offer, why not have him there opening night? I'm gonna sell a lot of jerseys. I'll have him there for a couple of months. I mean, there's no rush.
Yeah,
first good injury, he'll get a phone call. Trust me.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And there's a lot of people who have speculated that Chevy has been talking to Rutherford about getting Fleury here.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a possibility.
And so go back to what we were talking about earlier with protecting Myers, and say McPhee knows he's going to get Fleury, and he knows Chevy says, I'd like to take him. Now that deal gets real interesting, right?
Yeah, but I have a feeling, Peter, you're not going to want to hear this. I have a feeling Winnipeg's not on his list.
I think so too. But
well, at least you're
guys
honest
can be
about
persuasive too.
Yeah.
Guys can be persuasive too.
Yeah.
Russ, while we're waiting for Eck to get on the line here, you did a piece today for Sportsology regarding the 2017 draft and a dark horse prospect.
Yeah, Morgan Frost, really good kid, plays for the Sioux Greyhounds, a centerman. Really one of the faster guys in this draft. Now, we should never put so much of an emphasis on speed that should say, hey, fast guys should always go in the first round, because I can name you some guys that I've liked in the past that had great speed, and they didn't make it in the NHL. And so it happens. But this kid's got a lot of tools, and speed's one of them. I would say hockey IQ is real good. Stick handling is excellent. Matter of fact, one of the things that really surprised me is when he was in the top prospects game, they have a combine there the day before, I think. And people get to see that. And he was the fast. He basically placed top guy in two of the most important skating drills that there. One was like 30 meters, whatever, skating forward, and the other was 30 meters skating forward with the puck, which to me is even more important because it shows. Now he won both of those. He beat guys like Cody Glass. Like when you watch him and you watch how he scores goals in games, he does them with his speed right now. Like the one thing he's going to need to do is get a little stronger. He's got a good fast release on his shot, but there's not much behind it. He's going to have to get a little stronger to get more behind it. He's about 173 pounds.
Yeah.
But this guy, I think he's going to go mid to late second. I think more like now the problem is this. Like I think like a team like the Rangers who don't have a second at all might try and work some magic with all these other things they have going on and get a second rounder to try and get him. They did talk to him. Tim Gettinger is a guy they just signed to an ELC recently. He plays on his line. That could be a good combination, going forward years later. I also think when you're talking about the Leafs, I looked at where they're picking, and I think he's going to go just before where they're picking. So if they do want him, they're going to have to move up too.
Well, I mean, and it's been discussed in many circles regarding what's going to happen with Vegas, and that they're probably, some people were joking that the entire second round is going to be Vegas. So it's going to be fairly easy for teams to move up in the second round if there's a player that they really have spotted and targeted. I think the Leafs are 51 in the second round. So if they do like Morgan Frost, which they have every reason to, I mean, I've seen him play a couple times. His father, for people who don't know, was the former PA announcer at the Air Canada Center and a noted radio personality in Toronto, Andy Frost, who's, by the way, from Winnipeg. Peter, he's got Manitoba,
which is cool.
Yep. a lot of good things from Manitoba.
Yeah, no question. Jonathan Taves probably being at the top of that list.
What's that?
No, you locked up. So we said Peter said there's a lot of good things from Manitoba, and I said Jonathan Taves probably being at the top of that list right now.
Yeah. So I mean, I think he's probably going to be taken in the middle of the second round. But I think teams that are really interested in him could, it's not going to be tough for teams to move up in this draft, because it just seems like draft picks in this draft are not disposable, but I think more easily moved than in the last few drafts.
I will tell you this. I brought up the Ranger aspect because of the line mate, and because, Brandon Halverson also is a guy who played for the Sioux, and he's in the Rangers organization. So they have strong roots there. It's so easy to say, hey, he's got to be a Leaf because, of his other things.
No.
But Dave Hunter doesn't care about that.
No. I'm not saying. Yeah, I'm not saying that's the reason. I'm not saying that's the reason, Russ.
I'm not saying you are.
Yeah.
I'm saying I'm sure others are going to jump to that conclusion, but he doesn't care about stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I mean,
just cares about how his board looks and who looks best on his board that next pick.
Hey,
Hi. Sorry,
Hey,
I found it crazy. Kinds of innovations, innovations. How are you, folks?
Good.
what's the latest?
What are you guys talking about? Let me just see what you guys are talking about.
We can just
I
tell
was
us.
talking about a prospect. So
Yeah, we're going all over the board. So anything that you got, believe me.
Yeah.
All right. You obviously know about Girardi.
Yeah, we talked about the Ranger stuff. I did do that.
Yeah, no. I was told that. I'm sorry. I did get a text about Girardi also, that being, he does have value out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, we talked about that. There's no doubt.
There's the 2 or 3 teams. Obviously, this does make everything easier for Shattenkirk if they're going after. But they have to do something else. I was told this isn't the only thing they have to do.
Well, no. I mean, if Kevin Klein retires, then that probably gives them enough money.
Yeah, I mentioned that too. But the only thing about the Kevin Klein retirement goes, and you're right about that. I mean, that does give them enough money. But there's another player they're targeting. So there's still something else. There's still something left to do. This doesn't get them to where they want to get to.
Well, they signed Matt Pumple, but I think that salary is going to come right off. I think they're going to persuade Vegas to take him. So there's that too.
Yeah. I mean, so they're looking pretty. I mean, the Rangers have done some pretty nifty things here, I think. They're pretty impressed by the fact they could pull this off. And now the question is, we'll talk about this at length, I'm sure, but is Shattenkirk really the right person for them? And I
didn't even get into that today, but you're right. Yeah. That's a whole other discussion.
That is, and like we talked about before, many times where the Rangers do tend to want to get the guys that they, that they want to play there. They have a history of getting those guys. So Shattenkirk definitely wants to play there.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think it matters in the sense that if he's the right guy or the wrong guy, they're going to sign him. It appears. They've locked in on him. He's locked in on them. There's mutual interest. So I think what Russ said at the beginning of the show is the key thing. Will Shattenkirk give them some sort of break on his AAV to not cripple them against the cap, or is he going to go for the home run and ask for $7 million?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's gonna go home runish.
Okay. I mean, that will definitely make them have to do something else, and that's probably why they are shopping Stepan. But here's the other thing, Eck. I think they're targeting somebody else too, and again, when I said the name, Mike goes crazy.
What name?
Peter gasps. But this is the Rangers we're talking about, and just knowing what they do, Ilya Kovalchuk is the name that I brought up again.
Yeah, I heard another Uck in Galchenyuk with them is actually.
And that makes sense too.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any question that you'll have a situation where they go after Kovalchuk. I mean, he wants to play there.
Yep.
Yeah. Another situation of a guy who wants to play there. The Rangers, and we just don't know what he brings to the table exactly. But at the end of the day,
he'll help the power play. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Even the screwed up Ranger power play can definitely be helped by Ilya Kovalchuk. Like, there's no question. Yeah. If he can't score on the Ranger power play, then something is definitely wrong with it. That's way more beyond than Scott Arnell can ever hope to fix. So,
yeah, I heard a lot more about the the Predators having to give up a major player, and that's been something that I've been talking about. The Predators is right now. I did the Penguins and Predators on the rumor chart yesterday, and that changes a lot because I wasn't going into the Penguins yet, but I did get into the Predators, and the Predators do have that issue. If they're going to indeed do what you guys think they're going to do, which is go to 8 players, which it sounds like they will. So I mean, I think that the top, there's all different.
There's a bet on the line for this, Ek.
I know.
All right. I just didn't know if you remembered.
I can't remember exactly how many teams.
3. It was 2.
Is it 3, right?
The over/under was 2.
Right.
Yeah.
And right now it's like, if you look at them, if they protect the 4 defensemen, then you're talking protecting Forsberg, probably if Forsberg, Johansson, guys like Pontus Aberg and Victor, he's somebody you have to protect.
Pontus Aberg, is he not exempt?
Nope, he's not exempt.
He played too many years in the A. Okay.
Yeah, he's 23. He's 23 years old. I think he's in his fourth pro year. But yeah, I mean, and Arvidsson. So you're risking. I mean, that's why the name of James Neal has been out there in terms of a potential trade, because they can't protect him if they go to 8 skaters.
I think Neal makes most sense. I do.
Well, they're trying to make something happen before that gets to that point, because they really think that they could possibly get either make a trade along some lines. I don't think they want to keep Neal for sure. And hold on,
look, I think Pittsburgh would take James Neal back just because.
Well, yeah, I mean they probably would, and if he gets claimed by Vegas, remember, one of the things that Vegas can do, they can retain salary on 3 players,
right,
in deals. Now they probably won't do that all at the very beginning because they want to keep their options open. But if, say for example, they claim James Neal and they flip him someplace else, and James Neal I think makes $5 million. What the heck was that?
Havoc.
Oh, okay. They can.
Arvidsson has to be protected too, by the way.
Yeah, right. I mean, if they go 8 skaters and they protect their 4 defensemen, it's probably Forsberg, Johansson, Arvidsson, and Aberg. And if that's the case, then they're exposing Craig Smith, they're exposing James Neal, Colin Wilson, Kali Yarncroke, Colton Sissons, Salamaki. I mean, there's a lot of they would probably have to give up one of those guys, the one that they prefer to give up to be able to protect the other ones. So, I mean,
is it safe to say though, Mike? And I just heard you was logging back on that. I mean, we're talking about a lot of players who had really good playoffs, obviously, and had good runs, but I mean, losing one of those guys is not going to be the end of the world.
No, not at all.
They're really high on Aberg rather. So yeah. I think Neal is the guy that's going to go, and I think the Penguins would take him back, especially if the price is right, and maybe they have to give up a prospect in the deal. But I think the Penguins would do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think they might. I think they're going to find a way to keep James Neal personally, but I think I don't know how yet, but I do think that that's the player they're going to try. I think they will let a Sissons go or something like that if they have to, even though he had such a great run. They really do see Neal as a leader on that team. Neal's definitely matured a lot.
He is a leader, but he is getting longer in the tooth every year.
And he is a UFA at the end of next season. And remember, they've got to sign Arvidsson, he's an RFA, and they've got to sign Johansson, he's an RFA. So are they going to have the room to be able to pay James Neal if they sign those 2 guys? So I think that potentially letting Neal go to Vegas or moving him to Vegas is an admission that they need to open up the cap space to sign those guys.
Let me get into a little Nick Bonino, because I was talking about him today with some people. He's a really, you would have think with Marc-Andre Fleury going that Nick Bonino is going to stay. And I don't think that's a foregone conclusion at all. And I think that they really are looking at Bonino. Like I talked about yesterday, Matt Duchene is a big target for the Pittsburgh Penguins. They really see him as a possibility. I don't know what they're going to give up for him. I wrote yesterday that Daly has the rights. Daly's negotiation rights are something that Colorado has discussed with Pittsburgh. I don't know whether or not that's part of this deal or not, or if it's just something because it doesn't have to be part of this deal.
But Daly is. Don't get me wrong. He's won a couple Stanley Cups with them, and he's a good defenseman, and he's played well in the Western Conference before.
Yeah.
But he's, I think, 33 years old, 32 or 33 years old.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, his negotiating rights aren't exactly a prize that you would give a lot of value to in a match.
But right now, right now, Colorado needs a couple experienced D-men in there.
They do, but
But let's just say this: I think that there are guys in free agency who I think are the equivalent of Trevor Daley that you don't have to give up one of your best 3 forwards to get. So I mean, if they're trading Matt Duchene to Pittsburgh,
Duchene's not. That don't get me wrong. This is not. It may or may not be part of the deal. It has nothing very little to do with the deal. This is a separate thing that they've talked to them about. Now, whether or not that could be included into the deal for, to make it one trade instead of 2 or whatever. But I think that it's not going to be a situation where that's going to make or break the deal. There's more coming from Pittsburgh.
I would say this, based on Colorado's area of need and based on the way that he played in the playoffs, if there was a Matt Duchene deal with Pittsburgh, I would think that the centerpiece of that deal would be Olli Maatta, because Olli Maatta is making $4 million and did not play like a $4 million defenseman in the playoffs.
No, I think actually. His puck moving ability and skating is great, but his propensity for turnovers was great.
Yes.
It is great. He tries to do a lot. He definitely, but we wonder what it would be like in a different kind of system too, because that's the kind of system.
I think in a different system, you're right. I think he could look a lot better.
With Bonino, the Sabres keep coming up, and as a team that's really, and again, we talk about the Pittsburgh connection with Buffalo, but this is Bonino is definitely one of those 2/3 centers that people are really, they see him as a 3 center in most places, but to be fair,
he is.
Yeah,
he's been a 2 center in Pittsburgh and done a good job there, but he's behind Malkin and Crosby, so that's like. So,
and in Buffalo, he'd be a 3C. There wouldn't even be a question about that.
Yeah. But I think that the idea of what he does bring, the ability to kill penalties, the ability to play 2-way hockey, that's the Sabres seem to be really trying to build from that way out, and I keep hearing.
He can price himself out. Nick Bonino can price himself out of the market,
and that's why I mentioned yesterday our little wager, because if he's a 3 center, you cannot pay a 3 center more than $4 million. If you start getting $4.5-5 million range for a third line center, then you're not allocating your funds the right way. That's $5 million is a number 2 center.
Yeah.
No way it's a number 3. And if it is a number 3, then you're shortchanging yourself in other areas.
Right. I wanted to talk to Peter about something that I heard, which is an interesting trade. And I don't, and again, you look at Winnipeg is what they have going on there, but I've heard Jordan Eberle's name now mentioned with Winnipeg.
Wow.
Which is surprising. I mean, obviously, given that the Oilers and you don't see the Oilers and Jets hooking up for too many deals.
No.
But yeah, I mean, how do you think he would fit in?
I'm curious as to where.
And
that's sort of the interesting thing is, I mean, do you think he would fit in? Yeah, I mean, he's a serviceable guy who's a second line winger, and I'm just not sure. I'd be curious as to understand the nature of what the logic is there. I just not sure they need that, but.
Well, to be fair, logic. No, I'm just kidding.
No. I know what you're saying. Like it'd be interesting, but I'm wondering, like when you say that, it makes me think of this: is do they believe in their prospect pipeline, which is heavy on forward?
Yep.
They have a lot of talent in forwards. Do they say we're better off? We're too young. We got to balance this out a bit with a little more veteran thing, and we can move someone out who they can work with on a little more time, gives them some cap relief. We've got some cap space, and go from there. I mean, it doesn't initially make sense, but I could understand reasons behind it.
Yeah.
Depending on what the talk is.
Who are you going to give him, Peter? You're going to give him Nick Petan in a pick? Like, who are you giving him? I mean,
it depends what they want, right? Do they need another center?
how about, well, first of all, we know that Andres Sekera is out probably for all of next season because he had an ACL injury. How about Tobias Enstrom?
Yeah.
He's got 1 year left at $5.75 million.
There's no way they're paying that. No way.
No, but what I'm saying, Russ, is I think Edmonton wants to get Eberle out of town. He's making $6 million for another 2 years. That deal shortens up your cap ramifications because remember, after next year they have to start paying McDavid, so they need to get rid of that second year of Eberle's contract, and they need a short-term help on defense, and maybe Enstrom makes sense in that respect.
Yeah. No, that's not terrible. I mean,
the money doesn't balance out. They would have to eat some money,
but they could. I think there's a way of making that work.
Well, I have to. It's incumbent upon me anytime Peter's on the show to mention one of two names, and we mentioned the one guy the last time. So let's mention the other guy. Any Jacob Trouba rumors?
Nothing. Zero.
Yeah, I'll second that.
I'm sure X got it. I'm sure X heard something.
There was a lot, like maybe a month ago, but right now. I mean, the only team that really continually, I mean, Montreal and Toronto both have shown interest continually. Obviously, Detroit has a little bit as well. Boston has too, but I would say the only team that still seems to be paying a lot of attention is Montreal. I don't feels like Toronto is not paying attention to Trouba right now. At least they've sort of gone in a different direction. I've heard Toronto more with like Brandon Montour today. I heard that mentioned. So,
wow, yeah, I mean. Yeah, if they're prepared to give up William Nylander, maybe.
Right.
I mean,
well, no, I mean they are prepared to give up something pretty significant to get a defenseman that's significant. That's what they're saying. So
well, I was gonna ask, and I know that you probably can't specify the unknown aspect of the thing that you reported yesterday regarding Fowler and JVR. Now the thing is, they both have comparable cap hits for next year. And it would slightly alleviate the situation that's going on in Anaheim right now. But Fowler had such a ridiculously good year. I just can't imagine Bob Murray moving him unless his contract demand for next year is so over the top that they think that they can't afford him. But in that case, I don't think Lou's trading him because he's not going to trade and give up JVR and a top prospect or a draft pick if he can't sign Fowler long term.
Right, I agree with that.
No, I think that's totally legitimate. I mean, logically, it makes total sense. And I think that what I've heard, and maybe the best way to say it is sometimes you have to remember that Fowler's relationship with Anaheim is very long and a lot longer than just last year.
Sure.
So even though he's played really well recently, that doesn't necessarily mean that he mentally wants to remain there. And it could be him trying to actually make a statement to get out of there. And he's played really well, and you hear different things publicly. Fowler's a good person; you'll never hear him say something like this. But that's why I'm cautious about saying anything at all. But I've heard that there's definitely some stuff that he is not opposed to moving. And with everything that's happening there right now, they do have to make a move. Fowler is the easiest thing to make because he does clear the most space. He does give them the ability to move forward and not have to worry about that contract moving forward. So yeah, he's the easiest move, and it gives you a chip that fits perfectly with what Toronto wants. So, but they go back and forth.
For JVR, it's going to be more than that. JVR is not enough.
Right, JVR is definitely not enough, and so you're looking at a prospect or a pick of significance.
Yeah.
And cap wise, you can't. Cap wise, it's fine.
Probably it would. In my mind, if I were asking for this deal, I would ask for Travis Dermott and JVR. That's what I would ask for.
Yeah, that's not too far off.
Yeah, not sure they would give up Dermott because I think the Leafs think he's ready to play in the NHL now. And why would Anaheim ask for another young defenseman when they?
Because it doesn't cost anything, and they still need to keep the pipeline going. I mean,
it might actually free up some things for them, because if they get him, he's cheap, he's entry level, right? So it gives them a chance to perhaps, think about moving one of these other guys.
He could play in San Diego for another year or whoever they're. No, actually, it's not San Diego.
San Diego.
It is San Diego. He could play there for another year.
A report coming out here from James Myrtle from the Athletic that's stating that the NHL salary cap will likely be set at $75 million for this year. They're probably not scheduled to announce it until next week, but that the speculation is $75 million, which is not the full 5%, which would kick in a lot extra escrow. I mean, honestly, I think if it's $75 million, and it really doesn't help team. I mean, it's $2 million, but it's not enough to help teams that are in a cap crunch. It really isn't.
I mean, but the teams that are in a cap crunch, you could go up $10 million and they would still be issues. That's the thing about teams that are in a cap crunch. They are goldfish. They grow the size of their bowl, right? So it doesn't really much matter what happens. They're always going to have cap. They're always going to have that cap issues. Some of this team. It really the big issue with as you guys know, raising the salary cap ceiling is that you're raising the floor, and that's the big issue with the salary cap. It's not really the ceiling as much as it is the floor for the other teams who are trying to keep pace, right? So there's teams that have to pay way more than they want to right now because of the salary cap floor being close. And yet that 75 sounds like a good logical compromise. That number was being thrown around a lot during the finals. Different people talking about 75. I think that makes a ton of sense. I wouldn't be shocked at all if that's where this goes. I'd say with all that stuff though, I think that I know for a fact that Lou Lamoriello loves Cam Fowler. So
yeah,
I think and more so than than anyone he's got in his prospect pool. So I think that you look at him as a defender.
I mean, I know that sometimes trades are not logical. All I'm saying is that if there's a deal between Toronto and Anaheim involving JVR and Fowler, and the Leafs have to give up more in terms of a prospect or a draft pick, I would think that with the Leafs having a preponderance of prospects up front, that they'd be more willing to give up a Bracco, a Kapanen, or another forward than to give up their best young defensive prospect when they're hurting for defensive prospects. So I'm just saying I think it's that direction if that deal went off. I don't think they would trade Dermott. They might trade somebody else in the defensive mix, but not Travis Dermott, because I think they think he's going to make the team next year.
Okay. I do want to read you one little quote. I just got it. They gave a statement, Dan Girardi. And it's a pretty big deal for Ranger fans. I mean, I understand if you're not a fan of the Rangers, you may want to hold your ears. But I'm not going to read you all of it. But just one of the biggest things he wrote is, I poured my heart and soul into this team for the past 11 years, and I enjoyed every minute of it. I want to acknowledge that the Rangers are a first-class organization. We treat our players in a first-class fashion. My family and I are most grateful for the way we've been treated during our stay in New York. And he also said, in another sentence, but my family and I are looking forward to the next chapter in our lives. So
yeah,
he's definitely playing somewhere else.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, there's no two ways about that. He probably has a good idea of where he's playing already.
Yeah, I think he probably does.
And with a $2.6 million check that he's going to be getting next year, he can take a 1 year, $2.5 million contract from a team that has cap limitations, or that doesn't want to commit themselves long term, and he could have a chance at winning a Stanley Cup. That's why, like I said, Chicago or Pittsburgh or Edmonton or Toronto, those teams all need defensive help and all make sense. So I think he'll get a job.
He'll get a job.
It is funny how the rumor we threw out there a couple weeks ago, this is just text down, tweeted this. I don't know. It was one of the big guys. Because I was just texted. Did you see this tweet about Stepan Galchenyuk?
It was Bob McKenzie.
I don't want to say that it wasn't Bob first, but I talked about this like a week and a half.
That's what I'm talking about. That's why I was saying.
It's like bring that up too. Yeah.
No, it was a week ago. I mean, it was like was not. We're not talking.
Just that it made sense.
Well, and see, this is the thing. This is the thing. Galchenyuk is done in Montreal, not because he's not a good player, but because they've been propping him up as a center since he was drafted 3rd overall 5 years ago. He has not proven he can play center to 2 coaches, to Therrien and now to Julian. So it's and more important than that, they have to pay him this year. He's an RFA. So you're not going to pay a guy who you don't think can play the position that you want him to play. So the answer there is trade him someplace who wants him for somebody who can play center. That's why a Stepan Galchenyuk type of trade makes sense. And also, I wouldn't be surprised that a guy like Nathan Beaulieu would be potentially part of that deal, because they have a a situation with the expansion with protecting more than 3 defensemen. Beaulieu is going to be exposed, and he'll probably be picked up by Vegas if they expose him. So I think they'll move him before the expansion draft.
Let's talk for a second about psychology going on right now, because there's a lot of that, and I'll have a much more of a rumor update this afternoon in about 2 hours, around 4 o'clock.
It's like a psych class now. Okay.
Yeah, here's the psychology class. Okay. So Bill Daly meets with the general managers on the phone and says to them, this is reported by, I guess, was it Pierre LeBrun reported it?
Yes.
Yeah, I was about it off the record, but since he's talked about it, it's on the record now. So Daly meets with them, right, and says to them, we don't want you to leak anything between now and the 21st, so we can have a big reveal. And for the dramatic purposes, not since flipping a white card has anything been as dramatic as this. So, all right, so this is the plan, right? So Bill Daly says we're not going to do anything. We can make all deals. Now, I've been telling you that for a while now. I've been talking to people who are very nervous, and more people are calling me than ever before. Assistant GMs, regular GMs, scouts, because they feel like there's deals being made and McPhee is not telling them about them, and then there's other things happening, and this is all playing into it. This is where McPhee is being given a lot of power by being a single expansion team. Gives him a ton of power.
Yep.
More than any GM I think we've ever seen. And McPhee's a fighter. McPhee is a fighter. Like he's
always been a player. When I was at the combine.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I got up pretty early for breakfast, and we didn't know who was staying in the hotel we were staying in. And sure enough, George McPhee was staying there, and it wasn't right next to the combine. So clearly he was staying, 6-7 blocks away from the area. We did it because it was cheap. George did it so he could sort of hide and play in sight. And he was busy from the minute he sat down for breakfast till after. And we just said hello to him, and that was it. Like I could tell he was working on stuff.
Like McPhee, that's really McPhee's quiet, but at the same time. I was just talking to a buddy who's going to be on the podcast this week as well, Tom Laidlaw, this morning about McPhee. And Laidlaw is interesting because he was a player, played against McPhee, played with McPhee, in New York, right? And then also as a player agent, Tom, had some really interesting interactions with McPhee as well. So he told me a great story about George McPhee, which I wanted to share real quickly. It kind of gives you a little bit of psychology here, right? So George McPhee had just gotten called up to the Rangers. He was on the Rangers, and now Tom's like, as Tom describes it, I'm 6'2". McPhee looks like he's 5'2". He's like really a small guy. Comes in, and there's a game they're playing against the Islanders, and Nystrom and McPhee start getting into a tussle. And Laidlaw says, I jump in because I'm like, this guy's going to get killed. Nystrom's going to kill him. Like he's a small guy. Nystrom's like this big, Islander just going to destroy him. He jumps in there. They all get penalties. And then McPhee goes off on Laidlaw in the locker room saying, why'd you do that? What the hell? I can fight my own fights. And really got mad at him for jumping in. And then the next period they go out again. Nystrom starts kneeling at McPhee. They start stirring each other, and the two fight, and McPhee tunes up. It was just one of these. It was a really interesting thing because it just gives you a little bit of insight into this guy that we all think of as like this mild-mannered GM because we've seen him.
Well, because he's like a classy, refined GM, but he was a killer on the ice. I know.
Right, but this was his game, and because obviously you was there too. But it was just a fascinating story to me to think about because we're all, and what's happening right now with the psychology of everything is there are people who are definitely. You're really starting to see, and this is a little inside baseball, but I think this is what maybe I can bring to the table right now with everything that's going on. You're starting to see the cliques that exist among GMs.
Oh yeah.
That there's always been the American clique, obviously, yes. But there's been there's their Western Canadian clique, there's Eastern Canadian. You get there's different, there's the fishing clique, where these guys are all fished together, and you're starting to see these cliques and. What I've found is even though these deals don't have to be reported yet, and they're not going to report them, teams are definitely talking to each other and telling them what they're doing for the most part. for the most part. You know, now there are some GMs who are not in a clique, and those are the GMs when they're calling me. I'm learning how they're not in a clique, basically, or they're new. I'm learning about who talks to who more than ever before, because some people are just not getting any information and they're freaking out about it. And they're like, what are hearing anything? I know he doesn't. I know he's going to take this kind of player, but I don't want to protect this guy. That kind of stuff is very common conversation. Right? So you're going to see a lot. It's fascinating to me. Then twofold. One, to see that who is kind of on the outside looking in and still not accepted in the GM world, or has either been in there so long that they're completely not accepted and they don't care, or you have the people who are really tight. And then you also have, more than I expected, GMs sharing information with each other to help each other out, to say, I'm going to do this, and so he's going to have that player, so McPhee won't be able to take. Don't worry about protecting that player because McPhee's already told me he's going to take this guy. Now, whether or not that sticks or not, who knows?
Well, I mean, one of the things that GMs have to worry about when it comes to this situation, that's just sort of fluid, is a player being out there that is exposed by a team that Vegas will claim and flip. And that can affect them because they can be flipped to somebody in their division. Like, say, for example, Mark Mathot isn't protected by Ottawa. Mark Mathot is claimed by Vegas. And then Mark Mathot is flipped to Boston or Toronto. That's going to directly affect Ottawa. So that's something that they really have to worry about.
And that's the kind of stuff that I have heard that they are actually kind of more than I expected disclosing with each other. Like, they really are, because I've heard a couple. They won't tell me exactly what it is, Loris, because there really is a big moratorium on this. The NHL has made a big deal before Daly's meeting either. That's why I had it off the record before when a guy said to me, the NHL is telling us we can't say anything at all. This is the.
But here's the reality, and I tweeted this earlier. Telling NHL GMs to not have any leaks right now between now and the expansion draft is asking the White House to not have any leaks.
It's actually, I don't know if it's that bad, but I know exactly what you're saying. And
it's pretty bad.
It's pretty bad, but more so, it's not the GMs that are the worst.
No, but this word gets out, period.
It's the GMs aren't. There are some GMs that are an island, which is why Subban for Shea Weber surprised everybody, because Poyle won't tell anyone anything. And it happened so fast, basically. So it's Montreal calling up, asking about Shea Weber, and it happened so quickly that Poyle kept it completely secretive, to the point where, it was frustrating. And it would have gotten done earlier if they could have found Shea Weber. It couldn't tell him what's going on.
I will find it. I will be very curious to find out whether, because, the one deal that we've heard rumored ad nauseum about Vegas has been this Marcus Kruger, Trevor Van Riemsdyk thing. I will now want to see if that actually comes to fruition, or if that's just been,
I think that's real. I think
it's real. But the thing is, it's like, was this
real as Bigfoot? That's what I'm getting from you.
was this missive from Bill Daly? Was it basically, okay, we want to maintain the element of surprise, so shut up and don't tell the reporters in your town what deals are going to be made? I mean, honestly, we want to find out. We don't want to wait until the 21st of June. We want to find out now.
What I was told is there's several reasons they're doing it this way, but the beyond just the fact that they want to have this big marketing thing, where they announce the team and all this stuff at the same time, but they also want. They're really trying to avoid the speculation of players complaining about the speculation. Players are complaining about the leaks they're getting out there because, I think Kruger's an example of that. For example, just like these guys who they're tired of hearing their names in the press or whatever, and they're afraid. They're trying to protect the player. So if something doesn't happen, or if a deal happens, that's like, can you really say, to a player, like, say you're going to unprotect, I'm not protecting you because they've told me they won't take you. And then players don't love hearing that. That's not a very secure thing to hear. Just say these are people. They're people, and it's just like say, I'm not going to fire you, but I'm not going to guarantee your job. It's like that. That's sort of where we're.
Like any job in the world, walk into your boss's office. Depending on the day of the week, he might not guarantee your job either.
Well, exactly, and these guys get paid a lot of money to have fun and play hockey, but. So no one's feeling bad for them, but the idea here is, but they are, these are also athletes, and they're also stars, and they also and they have egos, and they want They think they're great, and a lot of them do, and even if they're humble,
they're the best players at their profession in the world. That's
right?
what they are.
And they should think they're great. But they also have you'll see that you really do sense that a lot of them are just totally pissed off at this whole thing.
Well, I think, you know what? Here's the thing. If you really think about it, the single guys probably don't care as much. The guys with families and kids care a lot because they're having conversations probably nightly with their family, with their parents. What's going to happen? What are you going to do if you have to move? Like, just as an example, if this were happening in my life, I would be getting a call from my mother every couple hours.
Right. And you'd have to talk to your wife every couple hours. And and she would naturally be curious, and you don't have any answers. And you're sitting there. It's frustrating, It
is.
I mean, that's normal. But so I think the NHL has a couple reasons for doing this. They're trying to sort of spare the players the emotional roller coaster of it ups and downs.
I think that's too late. It doesn't matter.
I think that when I say that's their thinking, but I also really feel like that effort is futile because no matter what you say, no matter how little you keep it out, the players are going to ride that emotional roller coaster anyway. They're all talking to each other about it.
Of course.
I talked to two players. They're like, oh yeah, I talked to so and so the other day, and he doesn't think he's going to get protected. What do you think? I've gotten calls like that. I don't really know, and I haven't heard anything. But in that case, there's players checking, other players. Oh, you think they'll protect me? And then there's players who do actually want to be unprotected. There's players who want to go to Vegas. I've heard that too. There are definitely players out there who want, and not some of the better players, but some of the players who are hoping that they get picked up.
What's funny is players don't have as much inside information as you think. And I use the example of when I went and did the Ranger book signing with Ryan McDonough, and Eck texts me and says, the lockout's going to be over. And I showed it to Ryan McDonough, and he goes, oh, that's great. I didn't know that.
Right. Remember?
He was happy then for that book signing. That put him in a good mood. Like, this is what happens a lot of times with players.
Now, we all think that they're all connected. And honestly, a lot of them, there's two kinds of players I've noticed. There's players like Ron Hainsey, for example, who does love he loves the game. Right. He wants to be involved. So he knows everything that's going on, and he's on top of it.
Yeah.
And then there are players who, won't even watch the playoffs when their team's eliminated. They want absolutely nothing to do with hockey if they're not involved in it. They don't care about the business. They don't care about the business at all. I heard somebody interviewed recently. It was one of the LA Kings interviewed who was like this. He said, I'm not watching anything. I haven't seen a single game. And those guys also during the lockout, you called them up and they're like, I don't know what's going on. My agent will tell me when it's time for me to play. And that was their attitude. That's how a lot of them are. And it seems crazy to us because we're like, how could you not want to get back at?
Right.
But they don't. There are guys who don't want to be involved in roller coasters, and they just take it. And then there's some people who are just emotional all over the map, and then they're like you say, when you have a wife involved. Not to say that there are some wives that are stronger than some of the guys easily that I've met too. Like some wives who are way more emotionally stable than the players. But
oh sure.
But there's all different sorts of things.
I mean, again, imagine I don't have kids, Zach, but I'll say if one of your kids came up to you and said, "Do we have to move now? Because I just heard that this might happen." What would you say to your kid?
It's horrible. I mean, and I've been in that situation, and I've been in that spot before, and I said, no, I have a job. Fortunately, I can do it from anywhere, so we don't have to move. But, but their best friends are moving, or one of their, and they see this whole, and they feel terrible about that, and they're trying to help their
gut-wrenching, man. I mean, fans don't want to think about that, but that could be gut-wrenching.
It's horrible. And anybody who was a kid, if you just think back to when you were a kid and your parents were thinking about saying that we may have to move, you know how horrible this is. I mean, just like that's that feeling. So
Mike, just think about when you were picked last to play in softball or something.
I was never picked last.
Okay.
I'm a slugger.
Mike was a cleanup hitter.
I wish I could believe that.
What were you in the field, Mike? You're a catcher?
Right field.
Okay, right field's good.
I was an opposite field hitter in softball. I couldn't get
one step away from left out, but that's okay. Right field.
Yeah, right field is usually the last position that people put in.
Left field's the worst.
No, catcher is the worst.
Well, catcher, you don't even count, right?
Right. So I count.
Oh, I think catcher counts. I was a catcher, so that's
no. In real baseball, it does. In real baseball and softball.
Oh, in softball, yeah. Okay. What do we got on Yager, Mike?
Oh no! I was just saying Yager would be the guy. Yager would be one of the guys who wants to go to Vegas.
Oh, sorry. I saw Yager throw up in the chat room. I hadn't heard anything about Yager.
But ironically, the funny thing is, it seems that with the hiring of Bugner and the fact that talent is now in control, that there's a lot of talk that Yager is not going to get an offer from Florida. So he may be looking for a new landing spot, and I don't know, Vegas might be if they
put him in.
Future Hall of Famer.
All right, I'll bring this up, not to fan the Flames, not because they're having a parade today, but I do think Jaromir Jagr could go back to Pittsburgh. I do.
Wow.
You were told this?
No.
Okay, yeah, because I've been told that there is no way in hell that would ever happen.
Really? I wonder about that. I do.
I wonder about it too, but there's and I thought and here's the real main reason why it won't happen is there is Lemieux, and there are some people there who are really pissed off about what happened when he signed with the Flyers, because when that happened, if you remember,
they've won a couple championships since then. I just kind of wonder if at some point this doesn't become a discussion. That's all.
I think it'd be great. I think it would be awesome. But I think that they've been talking to Jagr for over a year when he signed with the Flyers, and he talked to the Flyers for like 10 minutes and left them. That's how they see it. They're like, we had worked out all this stuff. They worked out all their things around getting Jagr back. They knew Jagr was going to come back to them, and then the Flyers offered very little more money.
But you never say never in sports. That's the whole thing.
Of course, right? I heard Edmonton with Jagr mentioned.
Okay.
That's what I'm going to be writing about later today. And
yeah, I think Edmonton would bring in Jagr just to make Milan Lucic look fast.
I mean, because here's what I'm thinking. Matt Cullen's gone, right? You put Jagr in the Matt Cullen role. That's pretty.
Although a lot of players are pushing hard in Pittsburgh for Matt Cullen to come back.
Yeah, but he's not going to come back, I don't think.
I wouldn't think so. We would talk to Hainsey. What's your impression on Hainsey? You think he's coming back?
Hainsey is, I think he will come back. Whether he signs with them or not is another story. I don't know what kind of deal they can offer him.
There's a lot of speculation about him going back to Carolina.
There is speculation about that, but I do think he'd stay there if he got a good offer. But the reality is, if Hainsey comes back and Letang is healthy, where does Ron Hainsey really fit in unless they do get rid of Ole Mata? That's the point. And so if they know Ole Mata is going, I can see Hainsey getting fit right in there. Second pairing, he's back. No problem.
They liked him for sure. And he was good.
If Ole Mata is staying and Letang is healthy, then I could see Hainsey going back to Carolina.
Well, I mean, they're losing they're probably losing Daly, so they have to keep one of the veteran guys. Right. So Letang will be back, but you don't know what kind of Letang you're getting back.
We say that every time, but every time he's fine.
I know, but we'll see.
I actually heard Vancouver with Hainsey, which is bizarre.
I don't see that.
I don't see it either, but I heard it from 3 different people. And it's really just very strange. It's just, like I said, I don't know.
I just think
somebody once told me Garceau was going to be the GM of the Islanders, and I ignored it, so I can never ignore anything. I
think Hainsey, he's gonna wait for a while and I think he's gonna be asked to wait for a little while and see what sort of happens in Pittsburgh and how it sort of works out. And I don't think he's gonna make a rush decision, because why wouldn't he try and win a second title if he could do it?
Yeah, no question about that. I agree. Also, more on Hamonic to the Lightning. I've heard that as well. That continues to be a hot rumor.
Hamonic for Duran.
Hamonic for Duran, yeah. The Lightning are apparently, like we talked about.
Who's the one that would hold up that particular deal? The Islanders?
I think it would be the Lightning.
The Lightning would.
I think it would be the Lightning,
because they'd have to protect him. They'd have to protect Hamonic right now, Russ.
Yeah,
right. Well, that's part of it. But
Tampa
right now,
Tampa has to protect. They have 4 defensemen who they're going to be exposing, and they can only protect one of them. Dachin, Cuckoo, Braden Coburn, or Jason Garrison. They can only protect one of those 4.
Yeah, so I would protect Cuckoo, and I would leave the rest out there. I don't think any of them are.
Yeah, there's no way that any of those guys are getting taken. But if they took Hamonic, you'd have an issue, right? So there's. Right. I agree with you that I think
they probably are waiting for that. Yeah.
You're not going to see these big player-for-player trades happen until after the expansion.
Right.
Unless they help somebody, but in most cases you're talking about big player-for-player. But you will see them. You're going to see a couple of them. I think that Shea Weber, the Shea Weber Subban trade last year and the Hall trade for Larson, you're going to see more of these coming up right before the draft. So there's not a lot of time in there. Like you're talking about. I think once this thing on the 21st.
Next week, I'm leaving for the draft, so there isn't a lot.
Once the 21st is done, so I mean, it's going to be rapid fire. So make sure you stay with Hockey Buzz as much as you can. Follow Russ on @Sportsology. Follow Mike at Mike in Buffalo. And of course, listen to Russ's show, the draft preview show, which you are filming tomorrow, right?
No, it's done. It's done. It's
4 hours.
just replaying. It's replaying starting again Friday on Sirius, and TSN's got their own schedule, and you can go to TSN Vancouver, and it'll be on podcast eventually.
Yep. All right, folks, we'll be back again tomorrow. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Enjoy those rumors. Have a good night.